turning it over to Grant and Mark and Rob Freeman, and let's talk about Canada's Roswell.
This is, they're looking at film. He's got 9 cameras. He brought the cameras along. We set them up numerous nights. Here's the lake, Rob. We set up at the lake there, and it was filmed from these 9 cameras. This is the Stephen Michalek case where we went in. This happened at Falcon Lake in 1967. He had this burn pattern that appeared. It would appear, reappear. A lot of people really don't know that there was metal found at the site, as with a lot of other things. This is actually the Canadians made a coin for this site. Beautiful. And this is the coin. It was selling for $125 in Canada. So I've got these pieces. They actually come from the site, from the rock where the UFO landed. $125, but they don't glow in the dark. So a lot of people are picking up rocks. Here we were going into the site. This is our UFO posse. I've got my cowboy toque on there, and we headed in by horseback in 40 minutes off from the ranch. And here's Des Barnaby. She did filming with the other camera. I'm just using my cell phone here, but she did some filming. She will put it on the internet along with this. This is the Carmen case. This is Bob Diemert. And he actually tells a story there where James Irwin from Apollo 15. This is the craft that landed. The door opened, if you know the story. And he stuck his head in there. He was talking to them in different languages, he thought it was the Americans. Here's the actual rock where this thing landed. So just to reiterate, this was happened in 1967. They talked about radiation, but it was sort of determined it was maybe not radiation. It was some bizarre thing. These burns that were on his body would disappear, then come back again. This went on for a number of years. He was at the Mayo Clinic. Blue Book went in there, and there we actually tried to track down some of the people that were talking, that the military was in there immediately when this happened, crisscrossing the area, U.S. military, Canadian RCMP and stuff. So that's one of the cases that Rob and Mark were doing. And now here's more professional. This is Mark's teaser for the trailer to a movie. And Rob and Mark have been around the world, 14 different countries with their cameras and trying to document the UFO story. So here's the trailer the teaser that Mark has put out.
It had to be something to do with UFOs or something, the way the lights were, how they darted. It was so dark and so quiet. I think I even remember hearing the swishing sound.
When I had my 75 sighting, I knew this happened.
And I'm so excited because in our travels over the last 5 years, we've never actually been to a real, authentic landing site.
Yeah.
So we're going to stand on the ground where an actual craft touched the ground.
And where there was an encounter where the guy actually sticks his head inside the craft and he's looking around inside the craft to see where these voices are coming from.
And we just stood there on the road, and it came right up and went right by us. It was below the level of the trees. It wasn't going fast, maybe 60 miles an hour at the most. Yeah. And they got right in front of us and hopped over the trees, went around Carmen and gone.
This wasn't even random. It's almost like they wanted me out there. Like I didn't go the first time when it started, and then I went out because this film had been taken, and I started to see the whole UFO phenomena different.
Okay, so Mark and Rob, are you there? And can we sort of maybe do a little discussion and maybe take some questions on this?
Sure. So Grant, first of all, thanks for having us on. And I want to say we had a wonderful time with you and Desta, Mark, myself, and Wendy, and we would do it again in a heartbeat.
And we had an incident we were at, we were looking at the spook lights at, now the town is escaping me, Woodridge. And can you tell the story about when we get reported because we're too close to the train tracks, and the CN police or the train reports us to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the federal police officer. Can you tell the story about what happens when he comes to investigate this call complaining about us?
We were too close. We can say that we were too close to the train tracks that night. Well, you know, we have a special video coming out for the Halloween weekend that we're calling it the Woodridge encounter, because we did have some strange things happen that night. That and one of the things that wasn't strange, but it's definitely spooky, was suddenly the lights coming on in the driveway there, or the pathway, and the police showing up. And but the best part about the police showing up was he instantly engaged with you and Rob and started telling stories. You know, he knew Woodridge lights. He knew what had happened. We recorded all of that, and that'll come out in the documentary as well as other videos that we're doing. But it was pretty amazing to hear him know completely about it and how the entire area is very aware. They call it the Halloween UFO phenomenon. That's what they call it. I've seen that online a lot. You know, is it UFO? Is it paranormal? That's up to I think that'd be up to the person experiencing it. But Rob, if you want to weigh in on what you did end up filming the second night we went out there.
Well, sure. And it was interesting. I'll get back to that first night, Grant, because the officer didn't expect to be there for more than 5 or 10 minutes. And I think, you know, he was an Indigenous officer, quite knowledgeable and quite a great guy. He was there for over an hour and a half, and we kept hearing his superior calling on the radio to see if he was okay. And of course, he told us all about his son was interested in this subject, and he really got into stories that the Indigenous people have connected with. So we learned as much from him as he did about us. But, you know, the second night, you and Desta weren't able to be there, but we went on the other side of the track. And we had one thing after the other happen. There was anomalous things happening with the equipment. We did see some lights that we caught in the time lapse. We caught in the night vision. And while we can't say 100% they were the Woodridge lights, it's pretty interesting. And I think, Mark, is that what you're going to show in this little Halloween video?
We're going to have a two-part video come out on October 31st will be the one. And then we're actually going to have the more official one as well. It'll come out the following Saturday. That's on Rob UFO World Explorer, the YouTube channel. It'll be on Facebook, and we'll make sure, Grant, you have all the links, and you can post it on your page as well. But oh yeah, the car was turning itself off, and all kinds of very different things happening that night.
Yeah, I remember the police.
Once again, Grant, you know, it's lights in the sky that attract us to this phenomenon. But, you know, in our case, traveling around the world, probably 75% of what goes on is all around us in this, what we call cool high strangeness. And it's like many people will go out and they'll just ignore all that. They'll say, oh, I'm having trouble with my camera. Another person will say the same thing. You know, everybody in the group will have trouble with the camera, but the group will just ignore it. Well, wait a minute, that is all part of the phenomenon. So, you know, I think you were with us when we had various different troubles with the camera and people's batteries going dead and stuff. Like, it's, people really have to pay attention to not just the sky, but all around them. And I'm sure, Melinda, on your tours, you probably could speak for 2 hours on that subject.
Yeah. I remember the police officer, because you were mentioning this thing where they kept calling him because they wondered, like, where is this guy? Like, because he went up, he was by himself, and he would just say, 30 more minutes, 30 minutes. and he would ask questions.
Well, yeah, and I guess personally, we didn't think it was a good idea. They were sending a guy all by himself out to meet us on this train track crossing that's in the middle of the woods, a mile back from the main road. But they did, and I think maybe they were worried that he got abducted or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Tell a little bit about your camera array, because you can see it in the background there. you spent a lot of money on camera equipment. You had a sighting when you were a young boy with, what, 100 UFOs, and you're obsessed with this.
Yeah, when I was a young boy, I was in Scouts. I was coming out of Scouts, and the kids that were playing in the street, this was Sarnia, Ontario in 1966. This was in that big flap that mainly happened in Michigan at the time, you know, where I think it was the Hillsdale School had a landing. They sent J. Allen Hynek to Michigan. So it was in that same period, I happened to see a light moving back and forth at about 800 feet in the sky. So, you know, bottom line on that one was nobody believed me, but the next day it was in the paper, and over 200 people from our area had seen it. And of course, they had interviewed police officers. On the American side, the Selfridge Air Force Base, just down the way from Port Huron, maybe 25 miles south of Port Huron, they'd sent up 2 jet fighters after this thing, and they couldn't catch it. It left them in the dust. 2 weeks later, a friend of mine from across the road went up on my roof because he said, you know, I would like to see a UFO too. And we saw hundreds go across the sky, literally in a second and a half or a second, from the north all the way to the south, right across in a second. And then 30 seconds later, the whole flotilla all the way back again. And it was, you know, fast forwarding to just 4 or 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I guess, you know, Mark and I had been doing films together, and the stories of the UFO came up in between sets. And I told him these stories, or told everybody in the group these stories. Mark went back and did research for several months. He came back to me and said, Rob, we're going to go around the world. And I said, and do what? And he says, we're going to go and see UFOs. We're going to document them. We're going to call them in. And I said, what? I laughed. I said, what do you mean call them in? He said, what you young boys did on that roof was you had the intent to call them in, and you actually did that. And that was the first that I even made that connection, you know, in 50 years. And we're trying to pass this on to the next generation because, you know, as they get into disclosure, everything that everybody in this group chat is doing, that will all become history. And people are going to look back and say, well, how did it all happen? How, you know, it's commonly known that they come and visited us. We have these packs with them, everything else. But we are going through a very interesting time right now. And it's important that it's documented how the transition happened from, first of all, being covered up and the public lied to entirely, to, you know, when disclosure actually happens and it becomes well known, and, you know, governments have agreements with extraterrestrials and it's not a big deal. Earth continues to move along and the peoples move along, and there's interaction between extraterrestrials and the Earth people. So we're very fortunate to live in this time period that we're living in right now, and we're so excited to be out there. We really feel like we're, you know, like a horse biting its bit, ready to get going. We're being held back right now with COVID, because usually we're out, I would say, about, anywhere between 6 and 8 different expeditions a year, probably closer to 8. And, you know, the best part of all of this is meeting people like you and Desta. You know, I've met Melinda, I believe, at a conference, at Paula's conference. I met you there, and various people. I mean, to me, that's the best part of all, is the fascinating people you meet, the stories you hear, going out in the field and sharing experiences with them. I wouldn't trade that for anything.
No, that's okay. It's just such a privilege to meet everyone that's on the panel today. Like this, like the Woodstock of, you know, of connecting to people and seeing people from all over the world. So we can't thank you enough for the invitation.
I appreciate the fact that you guys are out there doing it, and that he's put his money where his mouth is, and has helped the UFO community greatly in terms of what he's doing. So anything I can do to support you, and anybody who's got a site, I think you guys are always open to sites where they're hot sites, where you'll go in there with your cameras and try to pick stuff up. So I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. We really, really want to hook up with people who have experienced like yourself, you had fantastic experiences with Charlie Red Star. So I can't tell you how great of an opportunity it was to spend with you, time with you and Desta over the, gosh, I think it was close to 10 days or 11 days.
Yeah.
But in general, we try to hook up with experiencers, credible experiencers. Mark has gotten very good at, how would I put, screening the people that come to us, because, you know, unfortunately this field does, you know, attract a lot of other kinds of people, but we got to believe the people that we ultimately go out in the field with, it's, you know, close to 100% credible, if not 100% credible people. You never really know for sure, but we're just so excited to be doing that.
Rob, can you tell them, in terms of the amount of material that you're handling in your computer, how much footage do you film a night in terms of gigabytes?
I believe it's in the neighborhood of 330 gigabytes per night. Like,
he's running around Winnipeg looking for hard drives.
There's 9 cameras and 8 of them are video. And so, and they're in, you know, some of them are in 4K. So you can imagine the amount of gigabytes or, you know, megabytes it generates. And then it's, you know, the storage isn't the problem. It's looking through all this stuff after. Because what we try to do is, as we go through the night and things happen, we will mark that down. And then we go back into the footage for each camera and compare.
It's an amazing setup. I know we were in Falcon Lake and we had that one object, which in the morning when you showed me some of the other footage that we had, looked more like a natural phenomena than but when we were looking at it, you know, most people will be looking at the UFO and all of us were sitting there looking at the screens on the camera, because you have all these screens and nobody's even looking at the object, they're just looking at, because you got the infrared and you can see it in all these different viewpoints. And it's incredible, and people don't realize the amount of work, because I know we'd all go to bed and you'd be up in the middle of the night looking at all these, you know, different footages from the different cameras of different things. So I appreciate the work you've done there and the amount of material that you've actually filmed and how in depth it is, where when you have a UFO sighting, you're filming it from 9 different perspectives. Plus you're walking around with an audio recorder taped to your arm, which picks up all this audio. And people don't realize it takes you like an hour to set this whole thing up, to set up all the cameras and focus them and stuff like that. It's an amazing array that you've got there.
It is. Thanks, Grant. And you know, it's kind of like people say, how can you go through all that work every time? But it's a work of passion. And when you are doing something that you're passionate about, it's not work. It's not work. And, you know, as you say, there are 9 cameras and there's all different kinds of cameras. There's infrared, there's thermal, there's full spectrum, there's visible. You've got zoom and wide angle night vision. So, you know, one of the cameras is going to pick it up. But we have picked up stuff, for example, on the thermal camera only. We were out over the English Channel in Wales, Mark will remember that, and all the visible cameras picked up nothing. But the thermal camera, which works on heat, picked up the image going across the sky. And when I really, you know, on the computer later zoomed in on it, it was the bottom of this object that was hot, because you can have black as hot or white as hot. You can reverse the polarity of the camera. So I was running it as black as hot, and it was the bottom that was hot. Now, that was something notable, because if this object was, say, a plane going through the air and the sun is shining on it from above, the top would be hot. Why was the bottom hot? Was it emitting some kind of a heat? Like that was the signature? Don't know. All I know is that, you know, this camera array has turned into, we call it the WMD, weapon of mass detection, but it has turned into the weapon of mass debunction. And what, you know, many times we'll go with people who claim to see things, but, you know, when you really zoom in with all this equipment, it's very disappointing, but then you can really see that it's not a craft. It is a known object. It's a satellite, it's a rocket body rotating, it's a shooting star, it's a flare. So on one hand, it's exciting that we've got all this high-tech equipment, but it really, really distills down what is authentic. Like most of the stuff that we see is proven with this equipment to just be benign stuff. But what we're really excited about is that, you know, that 5% that everybody talks about that is authentic. So the number of actual captures we get that are real are few and far between. But when we get them, they're terrific.
I certainly applaud you guys for all the efforts to get stuff on film and going to places that are hot spots and going out with people with contact experiences who can call them in and whatnot. But from my experience doing the tours, which is a lot, like I said, 1,244, is you got to be looking all directions, really. You got to have some night vision goggles out there with you guys. When you're filming at night, of course, you know, daytime's totally different. But any nighttime filming, you got to have people who are looking all directions, because you could have your camera set direction and all the action's going on behind you. You know, and so when we get like formations of objects and everywhere, you got to find them. You got to have people searching the sky, more than one pair. I mean, in my tour, we get like, you know, 8 pairs going at once. You've got to search the whole sky because it could be happening anywhere. And so I'm just saying, I applaud your guys' efforts and the filming of them. So that's what I was going to offer up, is just to say, get some night vision goggles out there with you so you won't miss the stuff behind you. You'll learn how to pick up your equipment and refocus it, or develop something that makes it swivel, or get a big turntable or something, because the action could be happening behind you. That is often the case on my tours. We're looking at one thing and someone says, oh, look at that, and the formation's behind us. You know, so I'm just saying, by doing that, it'll increase your ability to find stuff and increase what you're catching on camera.
Well, this is a great time. I mean, like, you know, when have we ever been able to have something so advanced like AI software and this type of advanced learning software that can literally process all of these different things and target it towards looking for UFOs? I mean, this is incredible that we've not only got 1 but 2 endeavors already underway, and probably more of them that we just don't know about yet. So a collaboration between these two would be awesome.
Will Miller, who was the military advisor to Stephen Greer, actually does a very long interview with Stephen Greer where he talks about going to the Pentagon and talking to Admiral Wilson and all this sort of stuff. But part of that, the most dramatic part of that interview, is he talks about a tour that he got of the NORAD headquarters. And where he's looking at the panel board, and they push a button and it has all the planes in the United States on this panel board. Push this button. And then I think he said button 54 was UFOs. And he said, push that button. And the guy pushes the button and it said, unauthorized access or something. But that's the idea, is that you have all this stuff loaded into one thing, so that you have this ability to pick up exactly what's going on in the area, rather than trying to figure out, you know, what's a plane, what's a star, and all this kind of stuff. It does that all for you.
Yeah.
Going back to Mark and Bob, are you incorporating with what you're doing, using the Scout program or whatever your version was? Are you still using that? And if not, I would say at least we should put you guys in touch with Bob McGuire and the folks with Skyhub, because I think you guys should use the Skyhub equipment also in conjunction with what you're doing.
Yeah, by all means, Melinda, hook us up, and I can get involved with Skyhub, and I will also try to open the door over to Lou Elizondo as well. I think that would be fantastic.
You said that you recently have kind of accepted that, or you've realized that you are calling in these craft, or maybe you have more to do with the sightings than you have previously thought. Has that inspired you to try different contact modalities, like maybe the CE5, or, you know, just meditating with intent. Or my favorite is I like to dance. The phenomenon likes me to dance as well. So, and it's all
tried
about
that on a
raising
tour yet,
vibration.
Nicole. I'll have to try dancing.
Hey, Grant has a couple of my vibration raising videos, and he promises me they're in the vault. So
Well, we were at St. Malo and nothing was happening. I contacted Nicole and she offered to come up there and dance, but she
I did. But yes, Rob, what are some of the things as an experiencer that you're trying?
Yeah, the answer to the question is all of the above. We've used every and all technique that's out there, and including meditation. Okay.
Opportunity to be with Ricardo Gonzalez, you know, Sixto Paz Wells, these, you know, so in different people, like different shamanistic people, like in Australia and things like that. So we feel pretty fortunate that we've learned a lot of things. It's like a mixed bag of different ways of connecting, and it's not easy though. You know, meditation is a very difficult, well, it's not difficult, but it's a challenging process.
We should also have you guys, when you come out here, take some of your equipment and everything, go out to Bradshaw Ranch, which is kind of the Sedona version of Skinwalker Ranch, and very famous for a lot of activity. Local researcher Tom Dongo's written about it in a number of books. But that might be very interesting too, to see what we get out there as well. So obviously, if you're going to make a trip to come here to Sedona, Arizona, come for a couple days, and we can do a couple of these things.
We generally, if we're going to spend a week to 10 days, we do pack a lot of different places into it and a lot of people. So Mark and I will work very closely with you over the coming months, and we'll put that together. May I make one last announcement?
Yes, you can close us out.
Okay. Next year, as soon as traveling is allowed again.
Thank you, Nicole.
As soon as traveling is allowed again, Mark and I are starting a new program. We're going to be going wherever there is a flap. In other words, if any of the viewers out there are saying, look, we're getting them every night, get your butt out here right now, we will have everything ready to go to hop on a plane and be there the next day.
Oh, that's great.
So
come to the UK.
Happening, we're ready to go. So I want everybody to know that.
Yeah, excellent. We are ready. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today, and
thank you, Nicole.
We will see you next
Nicole.
time.
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.